Hey, so we are live streaming onto our YouTube channel since the board came out from closed session. We're about 3 minutes away from the start time of the next portion of the meeting. And I wanted to give Mr. Bauer a chance to get his slideshow up and ready. You should have permissions to share, but I'll hang tight just in case you don't yet. Yeah, take your time. Take your time. This is our fourth one. So of course the live streamed one is going to be the one where we have trouble with the presentation. No problem. They've all been really smooth. There we go. Perfect. All right, so we've got about 2 more minutes to get started. Ms. Graham will introduce you. You'll be ready to rock and roll. And just one more reminder that we're live streaming to our YouTube page.
Welcome, Josh.
Welcome.
Welcome, everyone, and thanks to everyone who is watching on our live stream. I would like to introduce Josh Bauer from Crabtree to tell us all about the progress we're making on CHS. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your busy, beautiful evening and to attend this short presentation. So we're going to kind of give you an update of what's happened over the last several weeks. Going to ask a handful of questions and kind of get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of where we are. Okay. So for the agenda for tonight, so we're going to give a little bit of an update. We're going to review the project schedule. So what's happened so far over the last couple of weeks, and then we're going to progress further into the design. We have a handful of questions that we're going to be asking for responses. We're going to so far, we've been able to meet with students, with teachers, and with community groups. And we're going to talk a little bit about, just show you some examples of responses that we received so far. And then we're going to review some pre-schematic bubble diagrams and a massing model. Okay. So as far as schedule goes, we are right now still in pre-schematic design. So we've gone through some visioning exercises. I said with some teachers, some students, and some community members. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. We've just started the process as far as going through the educational program and the ed specs. So we're Mr. Deibler and his team and us are working on developing those. That identifies a number of classrooms, the size of classrooms, some adjacencies, and that will allow us to kind of take the massing model, the bubble diagram you're going to see here in a few minutes, and really allow us to develop that into the schematic design, where we'll really start to identify locations of classrooms, size of classrooms, really identify the size of the additions and how much of the building is going to be renovated and modified. From schematic design, we'll move into design development. Will happen sometime in August, September. It's about a 2 to 3 month process. At the same time, we'll be submitting for land development. So the site plans will all go in to the authorities for review. And then as we get into the end of the year, we'll be going to final detailing and coordination. and then looking to put the drawings out to bid for the contractors to give us some pricing in late winter or early spring, if not earlier. The goal is to get the bids in, receive the bids, and get construction started before the summer of 2022. What we find to be the most advantageous is try to do renovations over the summertime. So we're looking to do construction from summer of 2022 to the end of spring of 24. What that allows us to do is to do final cleanup, punch list, move furniture into the areas that are being renovated or constructed, and then start school in July, August of 2024 with all the contractors off the site. Okay, so if everybody can, who wants to participate, if you could pull out your personal device, and if you go to Menti, M-E-N-T-I, which is right up here, .com, and you type in this code 154-86365. What you can do is you're going to be able to go right through your personal device and be able to put in your responses. And what's really fantastic about this program, it's one of our favorites, is it allows us to see the live data as you put it in. So the first question is, you use a few words that embody or define and improve Christiansburg High School. The first line, you can enter in 3. What we're doing is allow you to, you can keep entering in words. As the group enters in words that multiple people enter in at the same time will become larger, and you get to see that right live on the screen as you enter in. So if you just go to menti.com and type in the code, it's 154-86365, and then you can, right from your personal device, be able to start entering words that you think would embody or define and improve Christiansburg High School. Oh, here we go. So we're seeing flexible, bright, spacious, natural light, great words. Windows, innovative, awesome. Flexible learning. Now what's really exciting, student focused, great words. What's really exciting is that, so we're going to share you some of the same questions that we ask the students and teachers, and you'll see a lot of similar words between the students and teachers and what we're seeing here and the community and what we're seeing here from this group. Spacious, great words. Awesome. We'll just give this a couple more seconds and we can move on to the next question. And then what we'll do is that we'll make all of these presentations available with the responses, so that way the board at your leisure, you can review the questions and then what the responses were. But these are great. Showpiece, awesome. I would say windows and natural light, of all the responses, are probably the most popular that we saw from the entire community, which is great. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's go on to the next question. Question 2 is, what words would you use to describe the ideal classroom? So not just the improvement of the school, but when you think of the ideal classroom, what do you think about? And think about it from the perspective of the student, from the teacher. How can we develop classrooms where teachers have the ability to teach, students have the ability to learn, and students have the ability to teach students? We're finding more and more that the collaboration between students, with the aid of technology, is really enriching the environment. So flexible seating, space, adaptable, collaboration, large, welcoming, soundproof. We got a lot from the teachers. Soundproof was very popular with the teachers. Space for creative seating. Awesome. Really, really good words.
Squeeze out if you're gonna eat.
Okay. Give it a couple more seconds here, and then we can move on to the next question. Engaging. Good one. Okay. Okay, the next question. So looking at these 4 images, So we have kind of 4 different cafeterias that we've had the privilege of designing many high school cafeterias and food courts, and so we just threw on 4 examples. When you're looking at these 4 images, what you should be able to do is, again, put words in. So what we're asking for is look at the specific image and say, oh, and see, as an example, I really love the curtain wall or the tables, or in B, kind of identify what image kind of you get excited about, and then identify specific items in that image that that you think would be an asset to the to your high school. So so in each one of these are different. Looking at the different seating options, the amount of daylight, the volume of the space. We're designing cafeterias and food courts, not just to be spaces for dining, which is a great time for that hour and a half during the day, for breakfast and then for lunch, but also, making sure that we can create it for flexible learning, putting technology in there and sound systems. So let's see what we see. So see windows. Okay, so let's go back to the images. And so feel free to put in the as you look at the images, the ones that which option, and then make a comment about that option. Maybe lighting in option A, or kind of the separation in option D between the corridor and the cafeteria space. Okay, so we see some windows. The B high top tables. The students love the high top tables. Seating style. C, because of the natural light in the windows. Good. Seems like B and C are very popular. B, use of seating options. It's interesting that over time as we continue to go away from the tables and chairs that we had when we were students, the fold up, rectilinear tables with the fixed seats, we've gone to, different, the high top tables, the smaller round, the larger round. Round tables seem to be very popular with students because it's more collaborative for the environment. But they said they also like the different types of flexible seating. So let's see what else we have. Okay, lots about seating. It's great comments. Looks out of the group, looks like B and C is the most popular, and seeing a lot about windows also. Good, awesome, great feedback. Okay, so the next question is, looking at these 4 images of different classrooms, identify items in the classrooms that you believe would promote learning. And we're not being specific intentionally. So they may mean individual learning or lecture learning or collaborative learning. As you're looking at the different types of tables and chairs that are in the spaces, or movable walls or daylighting, both natural and artificial lighting, and then also the ability to screen that. Looking at these 4 different options for different types of classrooms, what do you see in these images that you believe would help promote learning? Said from teacher to student and from student to student. Option C has has kind of the trapezoidal tables, which have become very popular. It really allows you to do half round or a circle type of learning. In A, you look at the that those have some kidney bean style tables, some round tables. They have different types of seatings, with the hokey stools that can kind of wiggle around. D is the entire wall opens up into the corridor, to really allow that classroom to engage in the space. So let's see what we see as far as comments go. So D, expansion. C, the desk can be arranged. Great. A and D, different seating spaces, bright colors, reconfigurable. D, flexible space, natural light. Good. A, with the different type of seating arrangements. D and A. Awesome. Let's go back to the, let's make sure everybody can see the images. So what you can see is that we're really, the focus of technology, the different types of writing surfaces, whether that means it's going to be a fixed whiteboard or the entire wall. At Stanton High School, we just did, they said we really don't want to have the limits of a whiteboard with a bar. What we want is we want the entire wall to be a white wall surface. So at Stanton High School, not only do they have portable touch screens in each one of the classrooms, the Promethean boards, but they also have the entire front of the wall is all one big whiteboard. So it really allows the teacher maximum amount of flexibility to engage and have different types of activities. Okay. So see some more comments. D, large and smaller tables allow for fixed and flexible seating. Great. Awesome. Great feedback. Okay. So last question. So improvements at CHS include but are not limited to. So the front elevation, kind of given the building a new face and off of New Franklin or North Franklin and also off of Independence. Safety and security, getting that secure vestibules, making sure that we're making sure all the exterior doors have electronic lock sets on them. Daylighting, and that's in classrooms and quarters. Technology, and again, that's also in classrooms and quarters. Connecting the cadet building. What can we do to really start to make this a campus and have a connection? And we started to already think about what does that mean? To make that connection for the campus. Working at performing arts and visual arts and upgrading those spaces. Public access to CTE. The historic museum legacy items that we have. Where can we place those items to make sure that they are prominently identified in our design and in the building? The creation of a field house, multiple gyms with a 200-meter track in there so that you can have regional events, in the space, both, running and track and field. That cafeteria space, we talked about having a food court and lots of daylight, connecting that cafeteria to safe and secure outdoor dining spaces and outdoor learning spaces. Upgrading the library to a media center and really start to make that technology friendly. One of the things the students were like, hey, how about a coffee bar? The collaborative labs where, whether that's intersecting elements, or it's all spread throughout, larger labs, smaller labs, we'll show you some examples of that. Making sure the classrooms have technology and science labs have lots of daylighting. Separating car and bus drive so it's safe. It's safe for the students, it's safe for bus drivers and for parents. Really placing parking where it's the most appropriate. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. Solar integration. What can we do to integrate solar and try to make not only make efforts to not only have our building to be more energy efficient and try and work to put energy back into the grid, but also use that as a learning experience for STEM, for science. In projects where we've added solar panels, whether that's on the facade, at the roof, or in a field, and having the students see, okay, this solar panel creates this much amount of energy. And when you start to orient on a north face or a south face, well, how does that have an impact? Does it have an impact on the roof versus on the ground? Improving your envelope efficiency so that way that your mechanical systems don't have to work as hard, and we reduce your energy costs. And then your specialty type labs, and that's all your specials. So this is a handful of items that we are looking at. And again, this is not just the limits of that, but as you think about what improvements we're making at CHS outside of this list, as we go to the next slide, think about what other improvements you would like to see at the facility. What other items do you say, hey, Josh, this was a great list, but here are things that we really think that you should try to tackle as we're making improvements. And you should be able to just type in words. We'd love to hear what your comments are as you think about the campus and other opportunities we should be seeking. Art, industrial design, good. History of the site, traffic flow. Good words. Yeah, traffic flow is going to be interesting. Coming off of North Franklin on Independence, and how do we make sure that we properly separate, car and bus drop off, and also have, safe student parking. It's we often joke that, the challenge is really not the students or the bus drivers, it's often the parents. And being a parent myself, I can make fun of myself on that. Updated CTE equipment. CTE design is very important, and we agree. And so what, not only looking at, what programs you currently offer, but is an opportunity, right, for new CTE design. And how can we make it safe for public to be able to visit those individual CTE programs, not allow them to go into the rest of the building, but also make it a safe, accessible access, for those spaces, for cosmetology, for auto mechanics. You have an amazing VOAD program, and what can we do to help amplify that, to make it more public friendly for the CTE program? Great. And here's the good news about all of this is that, as we said before, we will continue to engage, the board and teachers and students, and the public all throughout this process. We are, it's very important to update you, and also to engage you to see what improvements we should be making. Updated HVAC equipment. Many of us couldn't agree more. And make sure that are big enough to allow room to grow. Absolutely. Great items. Okay, we'll give this a couple more seconds, and we can move on from the questions and start to talk about what we've experienced from the students and the teachers. Okay. All right. So, actually, we're going to show you some images first. So so here's some example images of spaces that we've created at other high schools. That when we're talking about collaboration and collaborative labs and spaces, here's an example of a large lab. So this is a large student gathering area. What you can see here is the high volume windows. The clear story windows up top. You can see the different types of lighting in there. The both down lighting and pendant lighting. A little bit of an area of a learning stair, both carpet and hard surfaces. You can see soft seating and tables and chairs. In the back of the room is the Roar store. This is where the student store is. So you can buy everything from gear, to bubble gum. And then also in this particular student commons, they also have that coffee and pastry shop. And what's awesome about it is it's an opportunity for the business students. They buy all the gear. The coffee cups, and they keep an accounting of it. Some of the special needs students are able to actually run the register, so it's a great life skills opportunity. It's really very engaging for the students, and for those who like coffee, the students also love that too. So here's an example. Here's another example of a large student commons. That collaborative area, that collaborative lab. In this case, it's a learning stair. So off to the right, you can see it's actually designed that it allows you to go from the first floor to the second floor, so it's fully accessible, going up through a system of ramps. The stair is designed so that way it can get you from the first to the second floor, but also it's an opportunity for a non-auditorium type large group setting. So multiple classes can meet in here. Just off in the distance, in the bottom here, you can see that this is actually the cafeteria. So the cafeteria opens up to this space. Again, really beautiful clear story windows, different types of lighting. You have access to all the different quarters. You can see the openness and the daylight, and a really a large amount of opportunity for both small and large group students to be able to meet. And these type of spaces can be anywhere. So here's an example of a quarter. Lots of daylight coming in. Just some soft seating. Actually, just beyond this window here is the media center. But there's opportunities for learning in all spaces. Quarters don't just have to be a space that's designed to get you from class A to class B. Can we create opportunities in nooks and crannies, in quarters, and for individualized or small group learning. Going back to the cafeteria design. So this is a dining room, with the high top tables. You can see daylighting, and the field beyond. do we have opportunities where there's a possibility for these doors to be able to open, where they're the overhead coiling door that can open up and allow students to be able to go outside and have outdoor dining spaces, in a courtyard or enclosed environment, so it's a safe place for students to be able to dine and be able to have outdoor learning. Just beyond here is a food court. And the food court is designed to have different types of food for both breakfast and for lunch. And that's a standard fare. Maybe there's a made to go. There's a salad station. What can we do to promote the dining experience for the students? As we all know, for some students, this may be the only food that they get during the day. So what can we do to help promote, by having different types of dining experiences inside that food court? This is another image, of a dining room. This is a larger format, dining room with a higher volume ceiling. Again, round tables, high top tables. You see just beyond the screen wall. So the screen wall was designed to try to filter the light. You can see we have a large outdoor dining space that you go right from the cafeteria out to that space. There's also an amphitheater where students could sit either at lunchtime or get an outdoor space that's inside of a courtyard, for students to be able to learn. So you can see the nice high volume spaces, lots of daylight coming in. And speaking of outdoor dining, here's an example of an outdoor dining space that has just a little bit of half wall. It's inside of a courtyard. These walls, there's doors in here that actually slide. It's called a nano wall, and these doors will actually slide open, so that way it's kind of an indoor-outdoor environment with a little bit of a canopy. At Stanton High School, we just completed one that is actually a pergola. So it has a kind of a screen above. If it's raining, you still get rained on. But at least there is a little bit of a formation of a area for sunshade. See, the next image is another courtyard, that with an amphitheater inside of it. It's a great opportunity, just like the learning stair. This is, if you think of it as an outdoor learning stair, where students can come out and have, and have space there for teachers and students to be able to learn in a collaborative environment. So now let's talk a little bit about the student and teacher visioning. So we took just a couple examples of the questions that we asked the students and the teachers. Thought it was a really great session. We showed a lot of the same images that we just showed you in the presentation. So some of the questions that we asked the students, use one or two words that embodied improved school. If you look at them, they're very similar to the items that you had: windows, bright outdoor areas, collaboration, better locker rooms, larger classrooms, better mental health. Really, really great comments, from the students. We really appreciated them taking their time. Another question was, what do you feel is the most important improvements? And there was a handful of items that we gave them as options. Improved front exterior, safety and security, better athletics and art spaces. Another question is what words do you use to describe the ideal classroom? If you remember, we just asked that question. The students' response was comfortable, open, colorful, interactive, including, spacey. Again, all great words, and you'll see there's a lot of commonality amongst the words from the students, the teachers, and then the community yourselves. So from a teacher visioning, and again, we'll share the entire presentation with you guys if you have an interest in looking at all the questions and the responses. So from a teacher visioning standpoint, again, we asked them about the improved school. See a lot of the same comments: natural light, windows, bigger classrooms, future focused, electrical upgrades, collaborative, welcoming, modern. Really, really great words that identify what we want to aspire to in our improved school. Again, we asked the teachers, what do you feel is an important improvement? Teachers really focused on the collaboration spaces. We had a number of questions about it, and the teachers really felt strongly that those collaborative areas where students can have small and large group were very important. Along with the safety and security, athletics, and improved interior and exterior. This was interesting that we asked the teachers if how would they prefer for a building to be organized, based on grade level or based on academies. Your math, science, and language arts, and having them grouped together. And it was unanimous. Everybody who voted, really felt strongly that the building should be organized on academies as opposed to being organized per grade level. Neither is right or wrong. we were just curious on what the teachers would prefer as far as a building organization, as we're looking at an opportunity to kind of redefine the educational program. And then again, we asked the teachers, to describe their ideal classroom. So a lot of the same type of, lecture and lab, acoustically sound, collaborative, flexible, comfortable, inviting, multifunctional, really, really great way to think about, the diversity of the classrooms, and make sure that when we get through this experience of transforming Christiansburg High School, is what can we do to take it, and have the building not prevent the teachers from being able to teach, or the students be able to learn. We don't want the building to hold back the ability to learn inside the building. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about, where we are on the schedule. We've asked some questions about, what you think is important to improve, kind of gave you some examples of collaborative spaces and classrooms, and talked about, our engagement with the students and the teachers and the community. So let's give you kind of an idea of where we are with the overall design of the building. So we are in pre-schematic design, and we spent the last handful of weeks kind of going through and saying, okay, let's move the blocks around. What is important from an adjacency standpoint? Where do we want the front entrance to be located at? And this diagram is reflective of our conversations. This is not a final design, but what this is kind of the beginning of the development of the design. So really, after this, and we'll talk, is that we're going to take this diagram. We're working with Mr. Deibler and his team to develop the educational specs of the program, and that really starts to identify the number of classrooms, the size of the administration. And what we could do then is take this diagram and really start to develop an actual floor plan and say, here's what the classrooms are, and is there a double loaded quarter? Do they have 2 quarters down? And what does that collaborative area look like? Is that going to be a learning stair? How do we identify that? So let's go through this. We're going to go through this diagram, and so this is the first floor, and we're going to have the main entrance. So Independence Way is right here, running horizontally across the plan. We would have a bus or car drop off at this location. So we're looking at the main entrance, and what we're trying to do is identify where does the main entrance is a secure entrance. That may or may not be where the students enter at, depending on how the site continues to develop. But this could be the spot where we have both car and bus drop off, and all the students enter into a main commons, which would be your front door. When we're looking at safety and security, this would also be where visitors would enter to come into a secure vestibule and be able to enter into the administration for, creating a secure locked vestibule, so that way parents and visitors can only get through as permitted. So as we look at the main commons, which kind of becomes our main street, and we'll get to the second floor here in a moment, but off to our left-hand side would be the cafeteria or the dining room, along with the kitchen and food court just off to our left. We have the administrative suite on our right-hand side. We're looking at a 2-story classroom wing, which would kind of come over here in a knuckle with the collaborative area, and then come over and connect into where the CTE area is. So this kind of gives us an opportunity to give an entire new face, and we'll show you a elevated model of this to help you identify, for going from a plan to how much does this actually cover. So we have an opportunity here to create a secure and safe outdoor learning area with a gated courtyard access. So this will still allow us to get into the space, from a maintenance standpoint, access to the auditorium, but have the safety of allowing students to be in the space, with teachers, your outdoor dining space, in a secure environment. Your existing auditorium would be located here. We have an opportunity here for that 2-story, that learning stair, just off of the main commons. Enhancement of the performing arts, that's your everything from your band to your chorus, all of those storage, and having them adjacent to the auditorium, and then your physical education support, which is going to be just below your existing main gymnasium. And as we now go upstairs, okay, so now this, I'm using my hands. One of these days we're actually going to meet in person. So as we now stack this floor on top, the cafeteria will be a 2-story volume space. So the cafeteria and your main commons would be open to below. Your media center would be stacked directly on the administration area. So that would be a two-story volume space. So your two-story classroom wings with your collaboration lab in the center. So that could be both small and large group spaces. With kind of this rounded curved edge. Come with a two-story classroom wing. We have an opportunity here with your VOAG, connection of a greenhouse and then science, that we can kind of have all of them on the same level, and really kind of create an opportunity for science to connect with your VOAG, with that greenhouse on the same level. The same thing with science is that, with an amphitheater and kind of this large elevated level, do we create spaces for science to be able to do experiments and go right from their classroom outside in a secure courtyard environment, and create a space here where science can do labs on the can do experiments on the outside. So we were saying a little bit earlier about the main commons, that coming from the first floor up to the second floor, that main commons is going to be what we call as a main street. So that'll be your connecting element of your large group spaces. So your cafeteria, your auditorium, your gymnasium, your field house, all of those shared core spaces will be able to be connected through that main commons. And really what that gives us an opportunity to do is to separate the classrooms from your main common spaces. What does that mean? So after hours, is that, we're able to lock off the classroom spaces. The public, where they're visiting for an auditorium event, for a play, coming over to the field house and coming in for a track event, whatever that means, and they'll be able to be in that environment with your toilet rooms, in those spaces without being able to go into the classroom areas. It'll be a nice separation of space. So on this upper level, we have science and robotics, and then that connection to CTE. We couldn't agree more. What can we do to make a stronger connection to CTE, to robotics, to science, to STEM, and really be able to take these and enhance all these programs and provide a safe exterior access to these for the public to continue to engage those CTE programs. Okay, so now let's look at this from a 3D perspective. So, the grayed out area here is your existing building. So, this is your auditorium, your gymnasium, your current front entrance. This is CTE. So just from a perspective standpoint, so what we'd be looking to do is create an addition for your cafeteria, your dining room, and for your kitchen. That main entrance, along with administration and the media center. You can start to see those blocks. And as we continue on for that build, now you can see the two-story classroom wing, that collaborative lab area, which we could do small and large group. We can have that learning stair, could be developed in this section. The two-story classroom wing, that greenhouse. What you can start to see here is that with the additions that we're developing, this really does allow us to give the entire building a new face and a new identity in the community. And really kind of, so bring the level up to enhance it to have the same quality that you have in some of your other high schools with daylighting and space. And then that field house and main commons, which is on the back side of the building, which has a great connection and gives an opportunity for the exterior and interior athletics. So let's look at it on the site. So when we're looking at the site, we have North Franklin and we have Independence. We have opportunities for that bus loop and the parking area. Your car drop off with parking. You can see the opportunities for us to create that new front entrance with your cafeteria, your administration, the classroom wing, the collaborative, the collaboration spaces for all the classrooms, that two-story classroom wing, starting to look at this as a campus, and having that connection, to the cadet building. We're intentionally stopping the parking and looking at, is this a pergola? Is this a raised elevation, for a sidewalk to be able to connect it? Does this rotate a little bit more and we have a direct connection from the cadet building, into your collaborative spaces? This will continue to look at opportunities to enhance this, but there's this is a great connection and a great opportunity to promote this building and make it more of a campus. Parking here that we can, start to give that better public access to the CTE programs. additional parking for the field house, for whether that's buses, buses in the rear, or parking for the public, to have, for those regional events, that you may that you may want to have, with that 200-meter track. I said, but this is just the beginning of a diagram. We have a long way to go to take this, and be able to create drawings that we can give to contractors. But this is the beginning of a design. And over the next handful of weeks and months, what you'll start to see is the evolution of this, to see, what are the materials on the exterior? Is it going to be brick? Is it going to be block? We're going to have large block. What's the windows? Does this further develop with the curve on the collab? Do we start to have a curve on the backside and really kind of have, a really dynamic elevation, that the administration and the cafeteria start to become this inverted curve? We've an inverse and different types of elevations. So this is a really exciting opportunity that we have to transform the building. So I promised to try to keep my presentation under an hour, and I did 38 minutes, which is fantastic. So now is an opportunity that we can either type in questions, or if it'd be preferable to the board president to open it up to just allow everybody to be able to speak. It's entirely up to you on how we want to do any types of questions. We can go back to any slide in the presentation, and we'd be happy to answer anything that we can.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me? Okay. So we looked at CET and classrooms and auditoriums and everything. What about art? We have two very little cramped rooms. When I first went to that building, it was amazing because it was 3 times the size of what we had in the old school. Mm-hmm. Where would art be and have access to outdoors?
Great question. So as we're looking at the visual arts, so if you can go back here. So so we really have an opportunity here on the second floor of the classroom wing. So this whole section here has a connection to go out to the greenhouse and out to this whole outdoor. So the students will be able to go from the second level through the corridor, past the greenhouse to the amphitheater, go down these stairs and have access to the whole outdoor learning space. Traditionally, we would recommend putting art on the second floor, and preferably with having a north-facing windows, because that really gives you both the 2D, your painting, and then your 3D for your pottery and that type of, by giving it a north elevation, it doesn't have any direct light coming in. It's the best quality light. But so looking at the second floor is an opportunity. We can also put it on the first floor. So it's really, we haven't quite identified every single space yet, but there's really a great opportunity here, either on the second floor or the first floor area, to be able to gain access to that outdoor space.
Okay.
I've
so
got sorry.
Go ahead, Jen.
I'm a little concerned with what I see for the CTE programs. It's hard to kind of see the footprint if it's compared to what we have now. If it is, where the science and robotics is that hall that's already there that included CTE classrooms. And my concern is, are we cutting back on space in those classrooms? That's something that I would not want to see, because I would want to see them larger, not less. Like the cosmetology, childcare. I want something, I would like to see something very comparable to what Blacksburg has in the size, because it's a beautiful setup.
Yeah. Hey, Josh, can I say something? Yeah, you got to remember, in that CTE wing, what we've put in there now is there's a weight room that's going to become available, Jamie, and a robotics lab. And so those are huge areas that are going to be moved, right, Josh, to the other parts of the building?
Yes, thank you, sir. So
Okay, so, and even food service, because I know we've got some professional or commercial type ovens in those food service areas. So is that something that's movable and that's going to work as well?
So where we are in the
Can you hear me?
process? Yes, I can hear you
Yeah.
fine. Yeah. So where we are in the process is
Okay.
right now the goal of this diagram is simply just to create adjacencies. So the next steps in our process is to go through the actual program, and during the programming phase, which will happen over the next 2 weeks, we're really going to identify two things. One is what classrooms, CTE labs do we need, and what is the appropriate size. This diagram, I said, well, the next step of that after we develop the program is then to evolve this into an actual design. So all the only goal of this is simply just to identify adjacencies and kind of start to create a building off of that. So we have a little bit of ways to go to be able to really identify the square footage of the classrooms and where it's going to be located at. But when we meet again in either next month or the fall, that we'll have a better idea of all of those answers for exactly what's happening in CTE, whether it expands, whether it gets modified. We just don't quite have the answer yet.
Okay, thank you. I just know Christiansburg has a large number of CTE students. So that's just an area that I really want to make sure that we get that right from the beginning. That's one of the reasons of doing a remodel opposed to a new building, is because we had such good space there. I want to make sure we don't lose it.
Right. And not only not lose any, but as Jamie's saying, gain some, because as we know, there are career paths that we haven't even thought of, that we want to make sure we're going to have the space to be able to integrate those into that part of the building and not have to chop off somebody else's space.
Yeah, and I am personally a huge fan of CTE programs. It is amazing on what the students can gain out of them, and then they have job ready skills. Not everybody has to go to college. Our parents all taught us you got to go to college. That's the only option. Well, there's a lot of great options that pay really good jobs that you can get without having to go through all that expense and all that time. So absolutely, you've got a fantastic you have great labs and a great program. We only want to enhance that. Absolutely.
Okay, so I have two more.
Okay.
So as far as those new jobs that we, are being developed every day, where I'm trying to look to see a technology center. I don't know what to call that, right? But something where an area, just like our CET and everything else, not just robotics, but someplace where our students are going to be exposed to and be able to access all types of new, innovative areas of technology.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other is the locker rooms, especially for our young ladies.
Yes, and STEM is a great opportunity for different types of technology. We've found that as we go through the ed program and develop that, STEM is a great program that is a very flexible lab where during that program they identify different types of technology, whether it's doing it virtual learning or actually having the equipment inside of the lab. As far as the locker rooms, our goal is to renovate all the locker rooms, as part of this project and enhance them. Whether they stay in their current location or they move to a new location, depending on the relationship to the field house and to the existing gym and the other physical education spaces. Not only do we want to renovate them, but also look at opportunities to think of locker rooms a little bit differently. One of the challenges that we had, especially as you look at old buildings, you had the gang showers, you had open areas that everybody had to get changed. What can we do to create safe environments for students to be able to shower? Dressing rooms where students can actually go in and change inside of a dressing room if they're uncomfortable changing in front of other students. So we want to think of what we're trying to do just as a society is think of locker rooms a little bit differently and make them more friendly for students from a bullying standpoint, just from a comfortability standpoint, and that's both boys and girls. As those spaces developed, our intent is to make them better for the students.
And equitable for the students.
Yes, I do want to tell a little funny story. Is that we just renovated a high school locker room, and if you've been in a boys and a girls locker room, they treat them differently. Okay, so girls are wonderful. They take care of the locker rooms. Typically, the lockers are all on the hinges. They don't smell as bad. And then the boys' locker room, half the doors are off. Like, it smells awful. And so when you look at it, you're like, oh, we need to renovate the boys' locker room. No, that's not fair. If we're gonna renovate, we need to renovate both locker rooms and make them both equitable. I'm a dad of 2 daughters. And trust me, everything is equitable when it comes to boys and girls. But yeah, I agree. So when we're looking at we're not make sure that they're equitable from a sports standpoint and from a boys and girls standpoint, and so make them both friendly, for students to be comfortable in changing and in hygiene.
What about non-gender locker rooms or a third locker room?
This is definitely something that we need to discuss. Is creating spaces. There's multiple ways to be able to handle that. Right. One of them is to have a simple locker room that students can go in and just they can have individual changing rooms. So we've had schools. We've done high schools where we had two locker areas. They're not boys or girls. That have changing rooms and toilet rooms all around the perimeter. Each one is an individual room. So a student brings their gear in, their changing gear. They go into the individual changing room. They shut the door. They change. They come out, and inside of the center of the room are just lockers. They put their street clothes in the locker. When they get done, with phys ed class or their sports, they come back and they do just the reverse. They grab their stuff out of the locker, they go into the individual changing room and change. So this is something that we'll have to develop as part of the ed program. Is what is appropriate for Christiansburg High School. Do we create that third room? Do we make all the locker rooms non-gender? Do we put dressing rooms inside of the locker rooms? So those are things that, as the program develops, we'll make those decisions individually for this facility, because we're not here to tell you what is the right and wrong answer. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Josh. I'm sorry. Marty, did you want to go ahead?
Yeah, can I follow real quick on
Yeah, go ahead.
Sue's?
That's fine.
And,
Yes.
and I'm assuming that would also include restrooms throughout the school for our non-gender students.
Yes, and that is extremely important.
Yes.
At any building right now that we're renovating or we're constructing new, when it comes to a school, is creating student. And this is in part, so challenges that we have is looking at it from non-gender is one way to look at it.
Mhm.
The other way is look at it as bullying. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bullying that happens in bathrooms and in locker rooms.
Mhm.
And by creating those individual spaces, that is, again, this is a student bathroom. It's a single occupancy. And it doesn't, what we want to try to not do is try to not identify that as the gender neutral bathroom, because then you're creating a stigma that, oh, well, if you're going in there, then that's, you're creating that stigma. So really it's for any student. The door is unlocked unless it's occupied. The door is always unlocked. There's not a key for it, so I don't have to have a special, but absolutely that near the gang bathroom area, because we still need to do that from a code standpoint. Otherwise but having individual student bathrooms and to have individual teacher bathrooms that are also in that same area. So again, we want to make sure is that it's very visible. And that is very non-specific, that for whatever reason, I love there's a new bathroom sign that has like a half boy, half girl and an alien, and it says, whatever, just wash your hands. But that's right. We want this environment to be nurturing, and we want it to be safe.
Exactly.
And that's when we want to think about everything from, somebody coming from the outside, but also bullying and making sure that the corridors are very visible for administrators. And the same thing with stairwells. Like this is the environment that we all wanted to grow up in. What can we do to make these buildings better, for teachers and for students?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Dana, for letting me follow up on that.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And Marty, because you touched on bathrooms, you made me, now I have two questions. I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and follow up with the bathroom question that Marty touched on. So I'm hearing, I have a daughter in high school. I'm hearing that I probably can say this throughout all of the high schools, more than likely. The kids are still doing things in bathrooms that they shouldn't be. One of the biggest ones is that we have is vaping. Would we have any technology now that we could install in a bathroom that could detect things going on in there, that not a camera, but maybe something that could alarm that there's something in the air, something that could let us know that there's something going on in there, such as vaping, that can be done? I don't know if there's even anything out there like that.
Yes, this camera would definitely not be. Well, we definitely couldn't do.
Yeah,
that.
I know we can't do a camera. I didn't know if there was like an alarm or some kind. I'm not even sure if vaping sends out any kind of anything in the air that could produce something to trigger some type of, alarm type system. I don't know.
Actually, Dana, that there are devices that are being sold to high schools now for that.
Yay.
And, in fact, I think there's some neighboring school divisions who are using them. So that's something we can definitely look into.
Yeah, because I know they do a really good job there of trying to watch for that, but that takes time away from teachers and from administration having to constantly check the bathrooms. So if there was that technology there, that's something we could think about. And then the next question I had initially was about safety, because it seems like the students and the teachers both, that was high on their list of something that they were very concerned about with, I can totally understand that. So a couple of things, I had went to a seminar at one of our conferences. I can't remember if it was the national conference now or if it was the state conference, but I know there's all kinds of technology out there now that we didn't have previously when some of these older schools were built, because we never even were thinking about school shootings and that type of thing, God forbid. But there was a company that was brought to my attention at one of them, and I had mentioned something to Dr. Meyer a long time ago. I don't even know if he remembers now, but I believe the name of the company was Strongwell, and they actually have plastics that they install into a wall that is supposed to be bulletproof. So just things like that. And as far as cost, I have no idea. I mean, things like that could possibly jack up the cost of during a remodel or building tremendously, but at the cost of what, a life, maybe, I don't know. I'm just thinking if there's technology out there we can use to help keep schools as safe, and our kids and teachers and staff and administration and whoever's in that building as safe as possible, are we thinking about using things that are out there? Can we use things? Have we thought about, I know sometimes, classrooms have been an issue. I mean, tech and even school classrooms, they're kind of stuck if there's no exit to the outside. Have we thought about maybe doing, I don't know if escape room is the right term, but like a safe space, like a hidden space somewhere inside of a classroom? I mean, I'm just kind of trying to brainstorm about some things we could do to try to possibly give options and make things safer when we go about starting this remodel.
And that's unfortunately, it's a topic that we're often asked, is that, what can we do to make our schools safer? So I am a strong believer, and I'm a CPTED licensed professional. So that is the crime prevention through environmental design. And a lot of that is eyes on the ball. One of the challenges is that cameras, while they sound great, no one is watching a camera, so the cameras are to see what happened afterwards. So part of this is what can we do to make sure that the building is designed for maximum amount of visibility, While we really can't, especially in a public environment, get into the specifics of any recommendations, only because we don't want to give away any safety information. As we develop a safety plan and develop those blow resistant panels, where do they go? If they go, do we look at safety glass? All of that will be integrated into the design, at the appropriate levels, for your school. We don't ever want to have the conversation of, oh, right, why didn't we do this or why didn't we do that? But we're not quite there yet to talk about safety and security.
Okay.
But yes, we design a lot of schools all throughout the Mid-Atlantic, and we want to, every building that we do, we try to make them more and more safe, to try to reduce the ability for someone to do harm. And that's, it's not just safety of someone on the outside. It's the security feeling inside, and it's not just the outside intruder. It's what can we do to prevent, to reduce bullying, to prevent bad actors inside of the school that are just doing the random nonsense stuff. I love kids. I got 2 high school students, but kids are kids, and it's all the aspects that we want to make sure that we're trying to focus on. But absolutely, safety and security is paramount as we're looking at the design to make sure that we make this building as safe as possible.
That's wonderful. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'll let somebody else go, but I have one more. Okay, so you're not going.
I have one question, I guess. Sorry, Penny, you want me to go ahead and go, or you want to go first?
Go. No, go ahead, Mark.
All right. So Josh, looking at these floor plans here, I'm thinking about flow and students getting from, one class period to the next. And I'm especially looking at the area where it says gated courtyard access and trying to figure out what's going on over there, as far as how the flow of the building goes. So I understand how you have this kind of 2-story, classroom wing that kind of curves around to create this courtyard. But, is there a way for students to, if you have a class, over in first period in that 2-story classroom wing, and then second period you have a CTE class, is there a way to get from, the new wing, into the CTE programs? In other words, does this make it just a big circle kind of, or will they have to kind of walk all the way back through? Can you speak
question
about that?
Great question. So the thought again is to try to have access that is controlled access into the space, except for the auditorium. So what we would end up doing here in the 2-story classroom wing is create vertical access. So there's going to be a large stair. There's going to be an elevator. So if you're in this collaborative area in this wing, you would be able to go vertically up to the 2nd floor, and from the 2nd floor through the corridor and then out into the space. So the idea is it is going to be a round space. You would never have to go all the way back, through the 2-story classroom wing to get all the way over here. There will be a vertical circulation that will connect the first floor to the 2nd floor, and then through into the science area in CTE. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that answers the question. I guess I'm not exactly sure how it would hook up, but maybe that's not important at this stage anyway. So thanks.
Yeah, and we haven't developed everything yet. The 2-story classroom wing, we would have, depending on how this actually lays out. So we're going to have vertical circulation. So if you're on the 1st floor, you would go up a set of stairs or up the elevator, be on the 2nd floor, go through this corridor, and there's going to be corridor access to get around to all this other piece. So if you wanted to go from, from there to go over to your field house, so you would be able to take this path and be able to go over to the field house. There's going to be corridor access all the way through. You wouldn't have to go all the way back out to the admin and circle around. That would not be very efficient.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if there's no one else, and I know time's running out. So what you call the cadet building, which was Friends Elementary School, it looked like there were some changes or something that were made to that in one of the slides that you had.
Let's see, ground. We don't have any.
Yes, that.
I think is just a bumping up of the model itself. Right now, we have not developed the program for the space, other than the desire to make that connection, and the program space has not been developed for Friends Elementary School yet.
Okay, so what probably the majority of folks in Montgomery County do not understand is that Christiansburg High School was built on the site, part of the site of Christiansburg Institute. And we have an opportunity with this expansion to make sure that we are truly integrating that history into what's happening with this building, and especially Friends Elementary School. Because the history is part of history of Montgomery County, and basically it's just been covered up with other stuff. And that history needs to be uncovered through this process.
I believe everybody agrees, with that statement. As this building starts to become more part of the campus and more integral, we're looking at opportunities of what program space could be utilized in this building, and then how can we make this connection stronger between the main high school building and that Friends Elementary School building. So again, this is all part of the process, and we will. One of our goals is absolutely to enhance that connection and make it more part of the campus. Okay. Any other comments or questions, concerns?
I had one more.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark Chewbacca.
So Josh, one other quick question. Can you talk a little bit about, often the library media center becomes a central hub to a school. And in this case, it definitely seems, at least from the front, the cafeteria and entrance is going to kind of be a big gathering place and hub. But can you talk about maybe the existing library media center, and then where you envision that either moving to or converting into? Just a little bit more about the library and media center, because I didn't see it in this.
Yeah, it's actually on the second floor. So what we'd look to do is actually have take an opportunity to put it above the administration area. So the media centers are changing over time. They're moving from a library to a media center. More technology is being evolved, more small group meeting space. So we've had instances where we've actually put those coffee bars in the media center as opposed to the main commons. With the media center being located here, I said it's above the admin. It would be an opportunity for it to be viewed from the main commons up into that. This wall could be a glass wall. We can also have daylighting coming from the outside. Direct connection to that 2-story classroom wing. Would have some type of corridor that's going to go around it. It's right now. So this is kind of identified as possibly the better location. And also being off of the main commons, it's easily accessible to go from that main commons up to the upper level to gain access to that. At this point, I can't say much more because we're still working on the program for it. But as of right now, we're looking to put it right here, just above the admin, with a connection to the main commons.
Okay, thanks.
So I have another one. So we many years ago were making sure that we were making sure our buildings were community friendly and community would have access. And I can see the amphitheater, those areas, although we want to, heard you, keep them very safe and for our students to be able to access them, but for our community to also be able to access them.
Are you thinking during school time
No,
or after hours?
no. Just as now,
Oh,
you know, after hours. Yeah.
Right. Great question. So the one of our thoughts initially is off of the main commons that there would be door access. I don't know if I can zoom in this a little bit. So no. So off of the main commons. So this would be your main point of access into the building, either during or after hours. There would also be an opportunity here for athletics access on the going to the upper point of the field house. But back here, so going off of the main commons, there would be door access to the outdoor dining, and then this gate would also allow you into the outdoor learning area, so that secure area. So through one point of entry, if you wanted to give public access, that they could have card access or have a custodian let them in, depending on how you decide to allow people to after hours access. But they could come in, go right through the outdoor dining space, which is going to be tables and chairs, through this gate, and that would allow them to the whole outdoor learning area without being able to get inside of the building. So that would be sit through. We typically would recommend one point of access if possible into the building, just so that way you always know who's in and who's outside. Who's always coming into the building. And if you give card access, that's a great way to identify. Oh, Josh Bauer was in the building. He came in at 8:03. And you can also look at the cameras, but yes, it would be very easy to permit the public to come in through the main doors, through the outdoor dining, to be able to gain access to that amphitheater on the inside courtyard.
So are there restrooms available as there access?
Yeah, so off of the main commons, because the cafeteria is here, we're going to have large gang restrooms off of the main commons, so the public would be able to utilize those restrooms on the main commons, but they would have to come back into the building to be able to do that. As of right now, that would just be, typically we would not put restrooms in the outside, but we could explore that if desired.
So another question is, when we're talking about the lower gym, additional track, I know it was everyone loves the new turf field and all of our wonderful, our campus there, but the walking access went away as far as the use of the track. And I know it's probably something we would have to think about, but folks to have access to an indoor track, especially after hours.
And we agree. So one of the things that we're looking at is coming off of the main parking area is to have direct access into the field house. And inside that field house, not only we have the indoor track, but also additional access to the locker rooms, team rooms, and toilet rooms. So that is one of the goals, is to have outdoor access to get into the field house.
And Penny, I can tell you from experience and being in a school with indoor track and just all the activities going on, it is they're always booked. It's hard to imagine there being just an open come walk type of time. It's really it will be constantly used and be a huge economic asset to the community. There's no doubt about that.
No. Yeah, I understand that, but again, that was a big disappointment to many folks to not be able to have access to the track. But we love that field.
I don't mean to keep on talking about the outdoor entrance to the auditorium or to the amphitheater, but Penny actually did raise a good question there, because, and an access card sounds great if you know who's coming, but when they do plays, and I've been to some of those plays, and it's a large crowd, and I don't think everybody's going to have an access card. So to me, I do think that would be a neat way if there was some kind of outdoor door that someone could even set up, because they charge admission of some, I don't know. I mean, that is an idea to think about. We don't have to ponder on it now, but I'm looking with the outdoor learning and the amphitheater, and I understand there's going to be a staircase there to connect on the upper level, to go to the upper level. But, you know, to me, if there's some kind of entrance right there, that it would put you in outdoor, and you don't have someone coming through the school for every event that we have. To me, that would be a safer thing than just saying, oh, okay, we're going to bring everybody through the main corridor to get to the auditorium. I would think that would be just like in the CTE where we want outside access. I would think, you know, the theater group would maybe enjoy having that as well. So when they do put on skits and plays or even, I know for an example, a couple years ago, we rented the auditorium for the Kiwanis Club to have a singing. And, you know, that was a whole different group than students. So just the thought.
And that's a great point. What's really nice about electronic hardware is you have the ability to actually have it unlocked for a certain period of time. So as an example, you know, we could have these doors. So you're right. We can absolutely provide access if the school desires, if the division desires to provide access to the public through the gate to be able to come to the outdoor learning areas. You know, for the auditorium, you know, what we can do is we have the ability to control how those doors are locked and unlocked. And because the main commons area, so this whole section here would have public access. So the public, you know, coming through those main doors would only be able to access that main commons area, you know, where the auditorium, the field house, the gymnasium, the cafeteria is that with the electronic hardware, we can actually say from 7 to 9 p.m. that those doors are unlocked. And it would just be these doors. So that way that if you had a play and you wanted people to have easy access, now typically we would see a ticket booth or somebody at the front door to just try, collecting tickets and making sure that random people were just walking off the streets. But that's all stuff that we'll work through, you know, as we develop the design of how does public access, what's the most appropriate times, you know, is it the best thing to do is have one point of access or have multiple? Those are all things that we'll go through as we continue to move into schematic design and through the design phases. Make sure it's both safe, secure, and accessible for the public to make sure it's friendly for the community.
Okay, so one more question, I promise. The auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's going to be upgraded, remodeled. We've done some great stuff with it as it is, but capacity. Is that going to be able to increase that? Are we going to be able to increase that?
We will have to research that. I can't promise you that we can with its current walls. As we replace seats, we can't always gain. We can't always gain the number of seats unless we actually make the seats smaller. But that I will put that on my list of things that we can look at. I know I don't want to make the seats smaller either. It's, you know, but I don't know the answer. So we'll look at the auditorium and see what opportunities there are to increase capacity in there, and we'll get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done for now.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for all your great questions. And Josh, thank you to you and your team for working to gather all this information. It sounds like you've got a lot to work with, which is great. Board, I'll have you look at what's on the calendar for our upcoming meetings in June and July. And if no one has anything else, we'll go ahead and adjourn at 8:16.
Okay. Good night. And